All right, how's it going, everyone? Happy Monday. Thanks for joining me. So for anyone joining in for the first time, how's it going, Rashawn? For anyone joining in for the first time, we are working on an app that looks something like this. Hey, Avian. Hey, Rackbit. I don't know what the O/ means. Is that like someone waving? So we're gonna build, or we're working on building this app, which has some pretty complex animations, and we've kind of built like this first screen here with this carousel. And I'd like to get today to some of this next interaction, which is navigating to this screen here. And so that's going to involve quite a bit of transition animations, and I think it'll be interesting to see how we can handle that and maybe make the code not seem like impossible to follow or something. So we'll work on that. And let's see. So since basically I had upgraded Android Studio, and last stream I was experiencing some problems. But I think I tracked down kind of what was happening. I think it was related actually to the device that I was using. And so I'm using a Pixel 2 today instead. And I think that this should work pretty well. It looks like we've got the run on device is working smoothly again, and we can like browse to source and all that stuff as well. So should be good on that front. Hey Nelsa, thanks for saying that you love the series. I'm glad that you do. This has been a lot of fun for me as well. So you can see this is kind of the interaction that we have right now. So we have this sort of carousel thing going, and I actually fixed, there was a bug that we were trying to track down where the image would like kind of flash, and someone on YouTube, Mihai something, he basically had pointed out what the actual issue was, which was let me show you. So what was happening was in this fractional shape, this fractional rectangle shape, what was happening is we were passing in really small fractions or fractions that were basically, so start fraction was either really close to 1 or end fraction was really close to 0, which was causing the actual size of the rectangle to fall below 1 pixel, in which case the underlying drawing system would start to ignore the shape entirely. So by doing this sort of logic here, we're ensuring that the left and right sort of bounds are at least 1 pixel away from the other side of the rectangle, which ensures that like this rectangle has some area to it, which is actually pretty close to what we thought was going on. But I kind of forgot that we were using this fraction to then multiply to some width, and that it was actually 1 being 1 pixel that we needed to worry about instead of like being close to epsilon or something. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so thanks for playing the sound, but it didn't come through to me again. Hold on one second. Sound alerts. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing the sound. Thanks, Society.Android. Yeah, I ended up crossing 1,000 YouTube followers yesterday, I think. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. It's like interesting to sort of start off on a new social media platform where, you know, but you know, I had a lot of assistance from like the followers I have on Twitter and stuff, and so building a following on another platform is easier than it is for most, but it is still interesting to like kind of start from scratch again. So I'm excited about that. It'll be interesting to see if my next 1,000 subscribers, I wonder what will come first, another 1,000 subscribers on Twitter or another 1,000 on YouTube. Anyway, doesn't really matter. But thank you for saying so. Also, hi Sky Color. I don't think I said hi to you, but okay. So yeah, Rashawn asks, Leland, what can we expect with the edited content you intend to upload to YouTube? Yeah, that's a good question. So I've kind of, you know, I don't know with what cadence I will upload content to YouTube, but I would like to. And I have some ideas written down for what I want to do, but it probably won't be like whatever cadence I choose. It probably won't be like more than, you know, one video a week or something, even when I get going. So I think like when there's something that I have the unique capability of explaining, I think that'll be like the type of content that I'm into spending time on, where like it would be hard for anyone else to make that content. Someone actually had a really good idea the other day where they were basically saying like taking a really, you know, like it could just be like a really simple example, like a counter or something, you know, just hello world, but actually trying to go through every single step of the process and describe how that works. Like, you know, there's kind of this, there's like a canonical interview question, which I don't think anyone actually asks, but like, you know, it's basically like, okay, you type in google.com into the URL bar of your browser and you hit enter, like explain with as much detail as possible what happens. And so it's kind of like that, but for Compose. So like just starting from, okay, I wrote this Kotlin file and I hit, you know, build and run. What happens from, you know, that point all the way up to pixels being drawn on screen and stuff like that. And so I could, you know, walk through aspects of the compiler. I could walk through aspects of the runtime and like different subsystems and stuff like that. And I think that would be really cool. And so, you know, I could do that live on stream, or I could try and do like a really nice polished version of it, where I really kind of step through each section and maybe even have like some diagrams and stuff like that, which you know, it'd take more time, but it might be worth it. I think that would be pretty cool. You know, some other stuff that I'm thinking about doing is like just, you know, kind of quicker videos about you know, implementation details of Compose, some of which are maybe more user facing than others, like understanding how Remember works, for instance. That's content that I might be able to uniquely sort of talk about. And it also might be very digestible. Like I could imagine it being like a, you know, a 4-minute video or something on YouTube and people getting quite a lot of use out of that. So those are some ideas I have, but ultimately, like I'm I need to get better at like the editing process, and that is something that I want to do and like want to spend some time on. But I guess like be patient with me in the beginning. You know, I want to put out nice, high quality content, but I'm not very good at it yet. So still working on some of that. Okay, Marcelo says, hey Lynn, just finished my own stream, getting some coding done in live setting. Thanks again for the inspiration. Yeah, really cool. A, happy to see you here, and you know, B, also happy to, you know, hear that you're starting to do your own streaming. That's really cool. So good luck with that. Everyone should go follow Marcelo or Marcello on Twitch. Hey Nicholas. Hey Deb Souza, how's it going? Also, it's incredibly hot today in San Francisco. I have this big giant fan down here, which I have off because it makes quite a bit of noise. But I'm like already sweating, and it's like 2 minutes into the stream. So hopefully I can make it 2 hours without melting. Okay. Deb Souza asks, you saw the 1420 M1. I haven't checked it out yet. I'm sure someone on our team is looking at it. Quote of the day app. That's cool. What's the temperature? I'm not sure what the temperature is right now. Let's see. Temperature in Pacifica. Pacifica, it's 24. What? Okay, so it's 94 in San Francisco. Then it says it's 74 in Pacifica, but I don't believe it. That's where I live, in Pacifica. But I feel like our house temperature is a good 10 degrees warmer than it normally is. Oh, Skycolor says, I just spent 30 minutes looking at how I can set the system nav bar color to black in Compose. No joy, had to change themes.xml. I'll have to try that later. I think you can. Maybe I'll put up a gist or something, but you should be able to do it. I think I did that a long time ago. Okay, so let's play around with this. We've got, so we created this carousel component, and we gave it this like selected index and unselected index change, but right now it's not really being used anywhere. So we can try and let's try and end up using that in a way where we can then programmatically change the index here. So kind of as like a demonstration, it'd be interesting if like, so the buy ticket button, which at some point is going to navigate, but like in this case, let's just have it update the selected index here, and then that way we can test what we have going on. Oh, my computer's really slow right now. So Rashawn says all right, hold on. Something that Dev Souza says, something that I noticed was the support Kotlin Android extensions and JVM IR backend. I read that it's binary incompatible. Certain alpha. Yeah, I don't I honestly don't know much about this. If 1420 is binary incompatible in some way, it's definitely something we would need to look into. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure the details. I know that there are some other small things in 1420 that we're kind of waiting on that are important for us, but it's possible there's some issues as well. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have more context. Okay, so we're gonna add one to the selected index. And then what we want to do in our carousel is, I mean, just kind of naively, right? We can imagine like, we could do something like this where we say, okay, on commit selected index, then, and so what this will do is, so this will fire something as a side effect when the selected index changes. And so it changes from the last time it was passed in. And then when we do that, we could say animated offset dot animate to, and then the target here is then going to be like the selected index times the spacing in pixels. Wow, my computer is really slow at the moment. I wonder what's happening. Look at the activity monitor real quick. Sergey asks, can we expect guests from your Compose development team on the future streams? Interesting to listen more about different aspects of the framework, like font rendering, layout measurement, draw, etc. The stream's lagging. Yeah, okay. Definitely getting dragged down here. I wonder, it could be related to the temperature. Let me try. I'm just gonna close a few things to try and not do as much here. What is that? I've got a lot of Chrome windows open, so let me try and cut some of those down. And what else do I have open? Not sure any of that's gonna matter, but we'll see. Then I'll turn off the preview. All right, let's see how that works. Let me know if the the stream picks up frames again. It says camera's lagging by a frame. Okay. Cursado says, how many black shirts do you have? I have a lot, yeah. If you see me wearing the same shirt, it's not an indication of me wearing actually physically the same shirt. It's actually at one point I found a shirt that I kind of liked, and I just bought like 10 of them on Amazon because I don't know. If I like the very plain, like no logos or anything, just kind of like plain black shirt, sort of my go-to. What's my workstation setup? I I'm running all of this on a MacBook Pro 15-inch. It's a decent. It's like a pretty good MacBook Pro, but at the end of the day, I'm asking a lot of my machine, I guess. But hopefully this is better. It sounds like maybe it improved a bit. So when we are when the selected index changes, then we can animate to, let's see, it'll be -1 because the offset's inverted, and then selected index times the spacing in pixels. It is still pretty slow for me, so I don't know, when I'm typing it gets worse. I'm not sure if it's still slowing down. Let me close that. I'm guessing my laptop is like overheating right now, which is probably in addition to my body overheating. Okay, so if we try running this, this should, so basically we don't, unselected index change is not hooked up yet, but the selected index thing is. So let's see if this kind of does something predictable. Yeah, especially a particular year of the MacBooks, I think is like supposed to be particularly bad. I'm not really, honestly, I don't really know which year I have or what the details are there, but okay, so here we've got, now if I hit buy ticket, it should animate smoothly to the next poster. So, okay, yeah, so that works. But now, so if I keep doing that, then it's not going to work correctly, right? Because we're not really dealing with the bounds of the selected index properly, and then also we're not like resetting the index as we scroll to like a smaller index. So so now what we're going to do is we want to kind of hook up this unselected index change, where like, let's say our target, our consumed, so then we can say this. So in this lambda, we want to return the number of pixels consumed, which we were doing in this win statement before. But now I'm just gonna handle it separately as its like own expression. And so we know that the sort of current index is yeah, so Society.Android says this carousel feature could be a really helpful extension library. Yeah, I mean it totally could. I've seen, I think someone internally at Google built a kind of carousel like view pager like thing, and we'll probably have like a sort of more official version at some point, but you know, for now, I mean, like this code's on GitHub, like you can use it if you want. I'm not going to publish it as like a library that I need to maintain or anything like that, but I ran the compose samples and I noticed some jank when scrolling stuff. Is there a reason behind this? What's the cause? Really depends. I don't know. I mean, if you know, if you wanted to profile it and like see where the time is being spent, you could. If it's one of the compose samples, someone is probably already doing that and trying to figure out how to improve it. But if you're curious yourself, you could as well. Okay, so I'm gonna instead of updating the offset here, I'm gonna like update target and target equals, and then we'll have some handling at the end to like figure out if any of it's changed the actual index. So then else nothing really. Okay, so basically this is like here we're kind of coercing the scroll bounds properly to like be in between the you know, the start and end of the carousel. And then what we want to do here is you know, basically we should be able to calculate from the target a sort of index, and if that index is different than the one that was passed in, we should trigger the on index change thing. So index is equal to this will be the target. So let's call this target index. It's the target divided by spacing times -1, and then this will be like floor. Okay, Sociedad Android says they did open a bug and that the response was that it was a bug in lazy column. Yeah, so I'm not sure what the bug was, if they mentioned that or not. If that's what you're asking, I can try and find out more, or you can link me to the bug if you want, and I'll check it out. Sergey says, one thing I noticed, the documentation says composable functions can be invoked on a background thread during recomposition. I see. If you want to just, if you want to tweet the bug at me, I'll take a look at it after the stream. Yeah, so Sergey's asking about background composition. Like right now, all composition is single-threaded, but much of the design of Compose has been designed around the eventual goal to make composition multi-threaded in the future. Like a lot of the design is built around making things thread safe. Yeah, we are working hard to try and turn that on in a way that won't be like super disruptive. But yeah, it's a goal that we have. Okay, so if the selected index is not equal to the target index, then we can fire so I should probably just like kind of mention as a high level thing right now. what I'm doing is I'm turning Carousel into, like what I'm kind of trying to do is make it so that the like position of the carousel is both animated, but also like programmatically controlled above me, in a way that's like a little more limited. So the users of the carousel, they can just pass in like current index, and then they can also like they can read the current index, but they can't really see the specific animated state of the carousel composable. And so I'm making that API choice, but it's also making the implementation a lot more complicated, because I'm sort of faking the ownership of the state here to where I'm letting the consumer of the carousel decide what the control what the index is, even though I'm like doing this like scrollable sort of gesture handling thing. And so I have to sort of message to the parent like, hey, the index changed and you should probably update your index. But if they don't update their index, then I should sort of fix that, right? I don't know the right way to say it, but like, so if they end up not changing the index and then the index is wrong, then I should make sure that I sort of honor their choice to not update the index. Dev Souza asked, do you know if there's any other UI framework that does render and multi-thread like Compose will do with recomposition? So it depends what you mean by UI framework, but it is exceedingly rare. It's very difficult to sort of get right. If you're just sort of thinking about like UI libraries and things like that, there are some, that have done this pretty well. Like, on Android, for instance, Litho, is one kind of UI library that attempts to do a lot of the work in a background thread. And if you wanted to view it this way, like, so there's sort of two categories, right? There's, basically there's like multi-threaded kind of buffering, right? So you can have one phase be done on one thread and then like the next phase be done on another thread, which unblocks the previous thread from like doing, say, the next frame. And this, like, Android's been doing this for a while, right? With like the render thread and iOS does this, and it's fairly common, I guess, to do this approach. But the idea is that like for any given system, it's still entirely on one thread, because that one thread, like, it's just so much easier to like stay consistent when you know that like all of the things that are, this like one giant source of truth is all happening in a consistent single-threaded manner. And so composition has some interesting like constraints that maybe make it possible for us to sanely, not care about other threads. And the snapshot system is like one important mechanism there. Like when I have a mutable state of here, so this ends up using this like snapshot mutable state, and this whole like snapshot system here was built to have snapshot isolation. And so when you're in what we call a snapshot, if changes to that object happen in a different snapshot, you won't be able to see it. And so we can view a single composition as a sort of snapshot in time, and we can do that on one thread, and then an entirely different thread we can do some entirely different thing. and like basically be assured that at like a relatively low level in the whole stack of things, that the changes won't be visible to one another. But I mean, it's still very difficult to do that right. Let's see. Rashawn asks, Leland, how did you arrive at using gap buffer as the data structure for Compose? So this was using gap buffer was kind of like a major insight by one of my colleagues, Chuck Jasdowski. And I had built like a sort of prototype runtime that we were using that essentially operated using like a linked list type data structure that was pretty similar to, for instance, like how React Fiber works with their virtual DOM. It was like a double buffered linked list, and that worked reasonably well, I guess. But as we started working out a lot more of the details of how Compose would work and how we were using like source location as kind of like a meaningful key in Compose, if that makes sense. Like, so basically like the call location kind of gives a composable call like identity or like real estate in the overall hierarchy. When we started going down that path, I think like a light bulb went off in Chuck's head, which was like that this is kind of similar to like text editors and the underlying data structure that most text editors use is a gap buffer. And so we started exploring that path a little bit, and the kind of immediately, like the thing that I realized once we started talking about the trade-offs of a gap buffer like data structure is that in a UI, the actual structure of your UI doesn't change all that often. So like usually when you're doing like really high frequent updates or whatever, the actual structure of the UI is pretty constant, and then there are just values that are updating. And that's how most of like the updates in a UI system is like not changing things structurally, just updating values. And when you do change things structurally, it's usually like a huge change. So like an entire screen transition, or like this entire sub-hierarchy gets deleted wholesale, and then another entire hierarchy gets inserted wholesale. And so because of that, the gap buffers seem to be very fitting, because you essentially pay this cost to move the gap to the current place of like inserting or deleting. But then after that, every single cost after that is sort of like constant time. And that was like that was like a good way. That made me kind of believe in the gap buffer as like the right data structures, because it seemed to really match well with the sort of average case situation of a UI. Let's see. Johannes asks, "Hey Leland, any plans for hot reload like Flutter has without having to restart application to see UI changes, or is this what the preview in Android Studio would be used for instead?" Yeah, I mean, so this is something that we're working on. Definitely something that we want, and the way Compose works, I think, opens up some possibilities that we can do here. But right now the tools we have available to us are still not to the hot reload like capabilities, but it is something we're working on, and hopefully have more to show there soon. Okay. So we've got our unselected index change here. What I'm gonna do is I'm creating this like value holder class just because I am trying to be careful here about not reading, you know, offset, and this will kind of let me do that a little bit easier. So uh-oh, computer's freaking out again. So the stream skipping frames. I didn't realize that the temperature of my room was going to have such an impact. I think my MacBook is like getting throttled here. Let's try this. It's interesting. I can actually just no. Okay. Yeah, the camera froze. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah, it's a bummer. It's like also hard to iterate on this when everything is so slow. I wonder. I might try turning the fan on. See, I don't know if that's really even gonna help. Might make me might make me more comfortable, but I'm not sure it'll help anything else. Let's see. Put some ice on the fan. Yeah. All right. Let me turn the fan on real quick. I'm wondering, it looks like my mic is still, like the noise gate maybe is still below the ambient fan noise. Maybe. I don't know. Dang. This is frustrating. I'll move the mic over a little bit more, that might help. There's no issue with sound, so sound's all right. Okay, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it's a little bit better. So, what was I doing here? So I just created this like little value holder class, which I don't know. I mean, this is a little bit extra here, but I'm basically, if you're familiar with React, I'm basically creating like a use ref sort of thing here. And let's see, value holder, selected index. Now, I mean, one thing that you could do to avoid a lot of this complexity is to just not accept it, selected index as a parameter, and only have like on selected index changed, as in like past tense. And this is a lot easier to do because you're not allowing your consumer to control the selected index. You're only saying, like, so you're preventing them from having like programmatic control of what the current index is. You're just giving them the information of what you think it is. I'm doing the more complicated thing where I'm actually letting them control it. It makes everything more complicated, but it's what I want to do. So bear with me here. Expected index. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold like this expected index in this value holder, and I'm setting its initial value to whatever the initial index passed in is. And actually, so we should do that with the animated float as well. So let's go ahead and let's do private fun. Well, no, that's fine. Well, yeah, let's do that. So let's just create two like conversion functions. Let's call it index to offset, which is going to take in an int and return a float. And a spacing is also what we need. And this is going to be a float. Let's call it spacing pixels index. And then we'll have like the inverse function, which is offset to index, which is going to take in an offset, spacing, and return an int. And so this is -1 times offset divided by spacing. And that's just gonna, I don't know, I think make it a little bit more readable and understandable what we're doing. So I wish Kotlin had some namespace mechanism for top level functions. What do you mean? What would the namespacing do for you? Like, one thing I do wish is I wish that Kotlin had file private for various things. That's one of the things that I really like about Swift. Is all the file private it has. Okay, so index to offset. And this is going to take in the selected index and the spacing. And then here we're going to do a similar thing. Which is what? So index to offset. And then there's a few other places that we're doing this. right? Yeah, here. So, oh, and then I should floor this, I guess. Floor to int. Yeah, so the opposite's what I need to do here. So I'll say offset to index, create spacing. Okay, cool. Index fraction then becomes, oh, interesting. That's because I want that to stay afloat, so I can't really use that there. All right, well, maybe it's not the right thing to do, I'm not sure. But let's just keep going. So, what do I need for this? Operator. Does anyone remember? I think I need like this object, or no, that's the what does it do? Kotlin operator fun get value. Oh, it does have a this ref. Gotcha. This ref. Any, and then property, okay, property. And then I'm gonna have basically the same thing, but with a value for set value. Which one is it? Okay, it's the third property, third parameter. Value t. Okay, so so why am I doing this? Just because I think it feels nice. Like I kind of want this value holder to be transparent. Like you know, I could even rename it to ref or something if I wanted to, but you know, now I can use it like this and just kind of manage it that way. So when I do this, I create the value holder initially, but it's important here that I don't recreate it. I'm gonna be using this over time. And basically what I want to do is I want to say if expected index selected index, then I'm going to animate. So basically this is saying only do this like animate when the user of this carousel, when they've like programmatically changed the selected index in a way that I wasn't expecting them to by calling the onSelected index change. If that makes sense. So I should also probably use expected index here. It's if either one of these change, that's when I need to execute that code. And when this runs, basically I want to, once I've done this, then I'm gonna say, okay, now my expected index is like the selected index. And additionally, in here, before I call onSelected index change, I'm going to say expected index equals target index. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but this is all to kind of create this illusion, if you will, that that the parent component sort of owns this state. SkyColor says, I have a counter in state, and with timer schedule at fixed rate, I try to increase it every second, but I constantly get reading a state that was created after the snapshot was taken, or in a snapshot that has not yet been applied. I don't quite understand, what does that mean? Yeah, so this is a good question. What? Okay. What is all this Jordan pees the bed crap? What the hell? Okay. I'm gonna block a few of these people who... What? Oh, I've been raided? Okay. Oh, it's raid message. Oh, sorry. Oh, hey Jordan. Sorry, I've never been raided before. I don't know what this means. Okay. Thank you, Jordan, for raiding. Blocking the Vape Nation, indeed. Okay. 180 people just joined the stream. Cool. Well, thanks, Jordan, for showing your support. Not sure what this like whole Jordan pees the bed thing is, but nice. Okay, so what was the question? Like, so basically, SkyColor, you had a question about the snapshot has not yet been applied error message, and so this is basically this can happen if you're in a snapshot and then you end up doing some stuff in a different snapshot, but like you're still reading the state object from the old snapshot. And so let me know, like, basically if you have some code that doesn't work, go ahead and like tweet it at me or something, and there should be a predictable way to basically have it do the right thing. And we have some APIs to make that easier, but yeah, it is sometimes hard to understand. Okay, so back to this code. So basically we're setting the expected index before we start this animation, so that while it's animating, we know that this is the new expected index that we should have. So let's try and run this, and I think that we should be in a decent spot at the moment. By the way, so for those who don't know, Vape Juice Jordan is Jordan Gensler, who used to be a colleague of mine at Airbnb, and he's pretty hilarious and also a pretty damn good software engineer. So if you want to check out his Twitch, he's been streaming a lot longer than me, and is pretty entertaining. All right, so we've got this this like, you know, carousel thing working here, and so when we hit by ticket, we should, it's interesting, so it's animating 2 ahead instead of 1, which looks wrong. Not really sure why. Pretty good is a little bit too generous. Yeah, Jordan was one of these people who, like, just, I don't know, it was kind of funny. Like he would be, like, Jordan lived in Portland, and I lived in San Francisco, and the teams were fairly separate, and like, you know, we would just be out in San Francisco kind of struggling along, and like all of a sudden we'd find out that like Jordan built like this whole like big piece of infrastructure that like was awesome, and just like wasn't sharing with all of us in San Francisco, but like everyone in Portland was like super productive and like just loving life because, you know, it was just better infrastructure than everyone else in San Francisco had. All right, so what's going on? Looks like we're increasing the index more than we should be. Oh, you know what's happening? Okay, I see what's happening. So we're clicking the buy ticket button, right? And then we increment the selected index, which then ends up causing an animation. And then while it's animating, you know, this handler is getting called a number of times, and eventually it lands on this like new target index, and then fires on selected index changed again, which I think is then causing it to then go to the next one. I'm not sure if that's right. I'm not sure I've convinced myself. I think so. We might want to say, and expected index is not equal to selected index, or is not equal to the target index. Wonder if that'll work. So yeah, okay, so that worked. So now we can, you know, flip through the carousel like normal, and then when we hit the buy ticket button, oh no, it's not working. Okay. Still going up by 2. I wonder if I should. So I think in animate 2, I should be able to say on end so then when it ends, I can basically set the expected index then. See if that works. Expected 2 parameters. Oh. That's kind of annoying. So this gets the end reason and then the final value, which I suppose we might want to use this final value actually. But let's try it without it. Nope. Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna play around with that more and figure out where my logical bug is. But this is kind of enough in a working state that I want to start moving towards the. Yeah, it does seem like the computer's not struggling anymore. So I guess the fan was enough. But I want to start moving towards the transition. So basically, when we tap on this, we want to work on a transition where it sort of expands this card, and then the background is going to kind of fade away, and then the three cards are going to animate up. Should be a pretty involved transition, but I think that'll be more interesting. We've been talking about getting started on that for like 2 streams now, so I want to actually get to it, and then I'll play around with this logic later. So let's go back to our video here. So basically, when we hit the buy ticket button, we're gonna scale away the poster image. And then it looks like the text kind of animates up. So where the image was, like up to the top of the screen, and then we animate in some of this like deeper content here. And when that happens, that's when these like cards in the background start happening. So Rackbit asks, have you seen the new experimental Code With Me plugin by JetBrains? It's a Google Docs-like collaboration system. Yeah, so I have seen that. We tried using it in the live stream that we did with Gabe Peel. The actual Code With Me features work pretty well. Like I like it, but it seems like it really it caused my laptop to struggle, and so we were like seeing dropped frames and stuff in the stream. So I'm not sure if we do that kind of thing again, we might try something different, just because of how much like of a drain it was on my laptop. But yeah, I don't know. It is a cool plugin. Sergey asks, would it be like a shared element transition? It's actually, this particular transition isn't, there's not a lot of shared elements. There are some, arguably, right? Like, so the Joker text and like the chips and stuff like that, like, it moves position, but I'm not sure that's like the right, I'm not sure shared element transition is the right way to look at this particular transition, because everything else actually just kind of exits. The stuff on the side exits, and like the Joker background image like is new, like it seems to be separate from the previous one. So I'm gonna treat it like a like more of a just a transition, not really a shared element transition. So Let's hide the carousel for now. What I'm thinking I'll do, because we have a bit of a problem here, is that so there's some content that the carousel itself has rendered that ends up animating, and then there's also content in the movie poster that animates, and even the coil image. And so there's sort of like a single transition happening, but it's sort of happening at multiple levels with multiple owners. And so I think maybe the carousel sort of owns the transition, and then it'll pass into background and foreground content like a transition state object of some sort. And then this movie poster will be able to adjust its content based on that parameter. I think that's how I'm gonna deal with it. So here, instead of incrementing the index, we want to basically start the transition for the selected index, the current selected index. And also, I'll just say, like, I think that doing this in like a real app might be a little bit more complicated, because you'd really want, you'd want this new like screen that we're navigating to, you'd kind of want it to feel like an independent, oh sorry, I'm still viewing Chrome. So you kind of want this screen to be like this, its own independent endpoint. And so you want to be able to kind of get to that screen, and you'd kind of want to do so without like having to render this carousel. But I mean, at the same time, it's rendering the other carousel items in the background. So I don't know, that may not be entirely true. Night, Rashawn. Yannick asks, talking about shared transitions, any idea how they would be implemented using an overlay for views? So it's currently possible to snapshot a hierarchy and copy it in another parent. Yeah, so I think like today you could implement shared element transitions with like the snapshotting approach. And I think that would be doable. I'm not sure that that's the right way to do it. Like this is still an area that we're exploring, because part of the problem is that if you have shared elements on one screen and another, then if there's state underneath that like subhierarchy, you kind of want to preserve it. Like if it's state that happens, like it changes over time, then you kind of want that same, like the subhierarchy in the next state that you're mapping to, you want it to have the like, you don't want to reinitialize all that state again, and lose whatever state that it had grown. And to do that properly in Compose, I think we need some new APIs. And one of the APIs that we're exploring right now to enable this is like, you can imagine that we would have something where we'd be able to say something like this. Where we can we can basically compose anything in this lambda here. And what that does is that would return us this like placeable object, where the placeable could then be put like here, right? And what that would end up doing is that would take this text value and it would put it here in the hierarchy. But all of the actual like composition that happened would happen up here. And like its position in the composition hierarchy, like in terms of the slot table and everything, is it would be up here. But its position in the layout hierarchy would be down here. And so what this would enable is it would basically enable you to conditionally change the parent of the element, right? So you can imagine, you know, so this is like our shared element, right? And then let's say we've got like screen A, and you know, it uses the shared element here, and then you've got like screen B, and it uses the shared element here, and then like, you know, transition container, it uses the shared element here. And like we could build APIs that would end up like doing this kind of magic for you, but like, so it would be like, you know, in starting state, then render that, and like if, you know, transitioning, then do that, and if in end state, you know, do that. And like, you can imagine this happening in like 3 different areas of code. But like the only thing that you're kind of writing is like you would end up, you know, writing something like, you know, shared element with like, you know, some ID, like hello world text. And you know, you would do this or something. There would be like ways for you to do sort of just this, and it would feel natural. But then under the hood, it's like it's doing some stuff like this, and I think that is like, I think this API here is sort of what unlocks the shared, like the shared element API that we want. But you know, we don't have this API yet. We're still working on it and considering how this would work. But that's sort of my thinking, and no guarantees that that's where we'll end up. But that's sort of my current thoughts. Would that composable lambda be available outside? The placeable thing would be this would be a composable lambda, if that makes sense. Oh, I think I see what you're saying. You're saying the maybe that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out, is whether or not the compose call could be executed somewhere else. I think the answer is no. Otherwise it feels like a, yeah, I don't know. Need to think about that. Okay, so I'm trying to think about, like, it seems like this carousel, it seems like getting these like background, like animating these background images, that seems like a good thing for the carousel to do, right? Because it sort of, it owns the placement of these background images, and it knows where they are on the stack, and so it could animate them in a sensible way, like from where they are here. So I think that makes sense. Like, so the carousel is kind of doing like some of that animating, and along with this like Joker image here. Although, you know what? It's the foreground image that it's animating up, not the background one. Like it's the item image that's in the background, not the background image once we navigate to the new page. So like kind of semantically, like this image here in the middle, it's kind of disappearing and then reappearing above. And like sort of the same thing is happening to all of the element images. Which that's kind of that's a pretty bespoke thing for this carousel to do. So I'm not really sure what the right choice is there. Okay. I think we might want to expand this carousel to have like a hoisted state object. Like you could imagine having like a, not sure exactly what it would do. So we might have like a you know, animate. I wonder if it would just use the current index. So Sky Color says the carousel can have an onExpanded on callback, which would call a composable that contains the content. I think that's so like, I'm not sure if this is what you mean by callback, but I think I'm like imagining something like this. So I mean, if we did something like this, so this state here could just have it could have something like this. And then like potentially this background. I mean, so one thing we could do is, I mean we could say that this carousel, it only really works if there's like a foreground image and a background image. And so, you know, basically there's you know, there could be like some get background image, which is gonna, you know, accept a movie and return like, you know, an image asset or something like that. And then you know, this could this could receive a composable for that. So like this would be the you know, the image, something like that. I'm not really sure if that's a good API or not. You know, it'd be like item index. Like that's starting to get pretty involved here. But what that would do is it would allow, I mean, it would allow for this carousel to like know how to get the foreground image of each item. Sergey says, I saw commits with experiments on coroutine-based scrolling APIs. Wonder if more composed APIs be based on coroutines in the future. What do you think about that way of doing things in compose? Yeah, I mean, I think there are a handful of APIs that I think we are going to be moving them in the direction of coroutines if they're not already. You know, not all APIs, but a handful of them. We believe that like long term it'll be better if we do this now. I think for like a little bit of background, you know, we worked for Compose. We worked on Compose for a long time without coroutines being supported by the IR backend. And so there were a lot of APIs that had we had coroutines when we built them, they might have taken a different shape. And now that we have them and that we're, you know, working towards a stable beta, we're trying to go and look at some of these decisions that were made and whether or not it's worth, you know, kind of changing the API surface a bit to embrace coroutines a little bit more. And so you're probably seeing some of that. And some of the APIs are quite nice, depending on which one you're talking about here. So Skycolor says, I'm thinking that the carousel should know only about the movie poster and the background, and when the expand animation occurs, it can call movie details movie ID, which takes care of the content. Yeah, I think like, yeah, so we could, I'm trying to think if this makes sense. You know, one thing we could do is, so we kind of forget this idea, but we still sort of have both of these. So the carousel needs to know both the background image and the foreground image, but it doesn't actually. Well, and then maybe this is just entirely owned by the carousel. So, and maybe that's Skycolor, maybe that's what you're saying. So basically the carousel takes over rendering the background, and its implementation is that it renders the background image when it's in like carousel mode. And then when it expands, it swipes out the background images with these like the foreground images that it pops up. Which, I mean, that sounds reasonable. And then basically what what this could do is this could give us like an expanded state, which it goes from 0 to 1, 1 being fully expanded, and then we could handle that appropriately, handle that animation. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good approach. I think we should try going for that. So let's start going down that path, right? So what we'll want to do, and then I think we'll probably need to do something like this. But let's hold off on that for the moment. So the background content, let's say this gets expanded. And we're not using the index here, so I'm inclined to just remove it. So let's move this over to the background. So this is going to go here, and item. Oh, yeah, well, all right, so we'll have to deal with that. So I'm just gonna have this return any, because that's the type of the data for coil image. And so basically using coil image here is kind of an implementation detail, but like basically this could be an image asset, or it could be a URL or whatever. And in our case, it's going to be a URL just because it's easier. But coil will kind of handle each way. So image. And so we remove this API. So in our call site, it.gurl. Foreground. What did I call it? Poster. Oh, surprised that Kotlin isn't smart enough to figure out the comma there. Okay, so then I'm gonna remove the int here. Go ahead and call that item. And then for now, we're just gonna pass in 0 because it's not expanded. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I think now, because this carousel is like owning more, I'm not sure I want Not sure I want this controlled interface here. Maybe it just needs to get the current index. That might have been a, because it starts to get weird. I mean, like once it's expanded, I'm not really sure what it means to change the index here, and that feels wrong. And so making that possible, it's not, I don't know, it's not clear to me what the right behavior there is. So I may remove that. I'll have to think about that. So basically, as we transition, we're gonna start playing around with the, we would animate out the background image, all of the background images, and then we would animate in all of the foreground images. And I think, yeah, so the buy button still needs to know the selected index, but that can be a read-only thing. So that can be part of the carousel state, and it can just grab, you know, the carousel state dot current index or something like that. And even then yeah. So I think that maybe that'll be the reasonable approach to go down. I mean, the other thing is we could ask ourselves, I guess, what it would mean to change the index in the expanded state. Like maybe there's a whole separate animation to do that, which could be cool. I mean, I'm not a motion designer, so I don't know what that would even look like, but I can kind of imagine something there. So I'm trying to decide if I want to use the transition API or not. I think it makes sense. Let's try it, because I think it's important for me to dog food it at least. So, you know, carousel transition. So, but the thing is I don't like using the transition definition if there's not more than one state. I'm wondering if there's more than one state. It just seems like it's expanded or not. So, I don't know. I'm actually thinking I might avoid it. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and start working on this like state object here. I think it's gonna make some things a bit easier. That frustrates me a bit. All right, so the animated offset here. This is going to be an animated float. And let's go ahead and make like a composable, fun, remember carousel state. So I'm gonna pass that in for the offset. And then what else do we need in here? So it makes sense for there to be a fling config. And the spacing here. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I'm sometimes bad about the intentions. I don't remember them all. So we probably want a So I wonder if we should be able to update the size or not. Like ultimately this is a carousel and we should be able to survive like the number of items changing. But it seems conceivable that the spacing maybe we don't, right? So that's like an intrinsic part of this. So spacing could be here. Spacing px. And then that could be part of the state API here. Gosh, I don't know if that makes sense or not. I don't like how this is unraveling into a lot of different configuration here, but let's see. So I kind of want to have animated offset. So, and then the scroll controller, this is going to be part of the state too. Oh. Uh-oh. Screen's freezing. Let's see. State equals remember, or actually, I'm gonna go here, and we're gonna say carousel state is remember. And passed in our poster spacing. So theoretically, we might be able to remove it here. And I like that we can turn this back into a trailing lambda, which is a little bit nicer. initial index, maybe. Like I wonder if, like, we might need, if the items can change, because we need like an upper bound, but maybe that can all happen inside of here, maybe. No, because we need it for the scroll controller. Well, that doesn't have to be part of the state. I'm not sure yet. Because see, here we end up using the lower bound and the upper bound in here, which is dependent on the size of the items. All of this is going to change. What I'm wondering is if, like, I want the user to be able to change the number of items without creating a new state. And where does this end up getting used? So spacing. Yeah, I'm just gonna put, I think putting it in here makes some sense. So let's try this. Then we'll save the animated offset up here. This will be the initial index. So this upper bound is dynamic, and so I don't want to create it this every time. So I think what I'll do is I'll make it so that the consume delta lambda should just use some of the carousel state here. Delegate to that. And then I can get rid of this notion if I'm not letting the consumer control it. This can end up just being like a, you know, selected index. This can just use the animated offset here. But the upper bound, like, so what I could do is I could add, I don't think I like this, but you know, item count, right? And then this could have, like, you know, an upper bound, a lower bound, or whatever. And I could run this in, you know, inside of composition. This does, this is my code, right? So the scrollable controller, I can just initialize that in here. So basically this could be an initialized property. So scrollable controller equals scrollable controller, and that's going to take in consume scroll delta, which you know, could use the current this object, carousel state, this dot consume. Let's see. Float to float. Delta. So that could just be that, and then I'll pass in fling config. And all of this I can do in there. The upper bounds here are floats. That's sort of like a to-do, I guess. Oh, and then I pass in clocks, I guess, right? Animation clock, yeah. So that handles that. Default fling config. Just density. Kind of want to unpack that, but that's fine. So I can ignore that. Some spacing here. Oh. All right, I'm not super happy with this, to be honest, but I think it'll kind of get us started, and I think that as we write more code, what is like, what makes sense and what doesn't will become more clear. And we'll probably make some of this like private and stuff like that. So I'm gonna get rid of this and this. We're gonna create our state here. I don't like that I'm doing this, but I need to think about the better way to do that. But this makes me feel bad. Think more about this. But we basically we kind of need to deal with the bounds here, and then our upper and lower bounds. So lower bound, this. Item count by state of 0. We can kind of do that. Keep that private. So the upper bound's always 0. We're not doing this anymore. Okay, so this lets the consumer grab the current index, which is good. We want that, and we're gonna get rid of that. State that. And we're just gonna kind of pull out a bunch of stuff, which isn't great, but it's fine. And we don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. Now we're going to pass in the state scrollable controller. All right, and then everything compiles again. And now here I want to basically prevent this from getting recreated. And if they change the spacing, theoretically I might be able to like have like an update spacing. Where do I use spacing here? So it's used for the lower bound, and that's it. So maybe I'll do something like that. So I wonder if I did this, so it was count spacing. Oh, the fling config depends on the spacing. Okay. So let's not do that. So we'll just do this. But then this is frustrating. Okay. We'll do we should really just pass in just target. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just pass it in. So now I'm gonna have a fling config. And this is going to basically need a density. And then adjust target, we'll just do our adjust target. Target, float. Okay. I screwed some stuff up here. So now we're always going to have one fling config, and then its adjust target is going to know the current spacing, so we don't have to create a new one every time. What this allows us to do is like it allows for the carousel state to basically survive spacing changes to the spacing and to the item count. Which is nice. So then the fling config here is going to get a decay animation. And actually we'll just pass that in directly. And then this lambda here, which is the adjust target, this is just going to call adjust target. Thing. Bar spacing float. And then now this will use the spacing that was provided. So we don't use spacing here anymore. spacing dot to px. Okay. Can remove that here. So now everything works and it's like dynamic. And the only thing we need to worry about here is density. So density and the animation clock. And so basically if you update either of those two things, then we will, if you update one of those two things, like we have to reset the carousel state, but everything else is independent of that. So then we can do this. Okay, 0. Oh, I need to pass that in because it's composable. Okay, sure. And then I don't care about that. Density. So we'll pass in the density first, then the animated offset, and then the clock. And we'll just start this off at 0. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Animated offset. Okay. So now this gives us the API shape that we want. Let's see, target animation. One thing we're not doing is, so we're not using initial index. So, I mean, one thing I can do is just in here, I can say it dot, no, because the, like, so the problem is I don't know the spacing up here yet. And so then maybe, what did I do wrong here? So what is the target animation? Oh, I guess I didn't handle that right. So I need to do that. Let's solve this initial index problem another day. We're just going to start at 0 for the time being. So we should probably just make sure that this runs like we expect. So let's update this. So we're passing in spacing already. So we've got our carousel state here, which we can read in here if we need to. But this should basically do everything that it did before. But now we've got this like state object, which might be a more convenient place to hang some of this expand selected item type commands on. All right, let's try and run it. All right, everything still looks good. So now that that works, what I'm thinking we'll do is we'll wire up this expand selected item thing. And basically we'll transition to the expanded state. Delete that. So expand selected item. Let's create an expanded state. Expanded. Start at 0. And so this is basically, this is going to be an animated value that it's just a float. 0 represents unexpanded, 1 represents expanded. And we'll use it to control a number of other things. So one way that like that can work is we can just say that whenever we click expand, we just animate to 1. And that's basically it. So in here, what I'll do is I'll say carousel state dot expand selected item. And you know, so theoretically some of the stuff on this carousel state should probably be like, you know, private or internal to like whatever module is defining it. I'm just leaving it right now just because it's not a huge deal, but like so this should probably be private, for instance. That, and so that would be public, this would be public, this could be private, that could be private. You know, this could be internal maybe, and internal. And these things can be private, internal, you know, it's all debatable, I guess, but private, these will likely be needed. Right now, the internal versus public doesn't really matter because we're in the same module, but if you were trying to develop this as like a standalone composable, it would make sense. This is one of the reasons why I want file private, is because I'd then be able to say carousel state has these things that are private to everything but the carousel composable, which happens to be defined in the same file, and so then file private makes sense. Okay, so we did that. So let's go and see like what our background is going to kind of look like here. So this is where we're rendering each background image, and then so as we animate away, what do those background images do? So we click, goes away pretty quickly, but all right. So I'm thinking that I'll fade these pretty early on. All right. So this carousel background, this thing, we just invented this earlier, but this was already sort of doing something. Yeah, I can link you the mockup. Here's the mockup we're going off of. So, I mean, one thing we could do, because we're already doing this carousel background thing, we're going to be adjusting this draw layer modifier, and we could, we did this for performance reasons, and we could just, pretty easily continue on with this idea. I'm wondering if this will make sense or not. I think it would. Let's just go, like, we'll start there. Get expanded. What did I just call it? Oh. We'll just keep the naming. Get expanded fraction. And then this is basically just gonna get I want to end up holding this, so now animated offset, or sorry, what do we call it? Expanded equals state dot expanded. Sure. Okay. And so then here I just say expanded dot value. One thing that'll be interesting is that we'll do something different with the expanded animation, depending on whether or not it's the selected index or not. So we probably also need to pass that in there. Oh, but we know the index fraction, so actually we don't need that. So, I mean, one thing we can do pretty easily, right, is just animate the alpha here. So So now we'll say if, interesting, we're already kind of doing this logic. So so maybe instead of showing 1 here, we could just show 1 minus the expanded fraction. That's pretty basic. So if we run that, we should be able to see whenever we tap by ticket, we'll see the background image kind of animate out. So, yeah, pretty basic. And then what I'm gonna turn that buy ticket button into like a toggle instead, so that we can try it more than once. Try that. So now what I'm thinking is like we want like, so these images are sort of exiting, and we want other images to enter, the foreground images. But I wonder, I mean, so one thing we have going for us is that the images should already be in the cache. So we don't have to worry about them taking time to download or anything. Like I wonder if we just do something, I mean, maybe even a bit silly here, but if expanded Like, so we could do. I'm just gonna render everything for the moment. So this is what I'm doing. And actually, you know what? So since we own the whole image now, we don't actually need to put this in a column. Like we can move this modifier back down there. So this is fill max size, fill max width. I don't think we need that anymore. All right, so what if I just rendered 2 of these? Why did we need it in a column before? So the reason we had it in the column before is because we were actually, like, the carousel wasn't responsible for composing the image itself. It was delegating that responsibility to, like, the consumer of the carousel, like the thing using it, and it was letting it kind of render whatever it wanted to there. And so we basically used a column layout node to, like, you know, size that, like, slot correctly, and then let the consumer do whatever they wanted. Whereas now we kind of own the whole background, and we're actually doing the rendering of the image ourselves. So we can essentially, like, kind of skip a layout node there. Okay. So let's render this with the foreground now. This will have the foreground image. And then I think what this is, we'll say that this has a specific width of, let's see, we just have this spacing. I mean, technically this is, like, a little bit different than what it's getting rendered in the actual poster, but this will be roughly the same size, I guess. Not sure how much it matters. It might get cached per size or something, which is one reason why it might matter, but actually, is there a different width that would make sense for us? I don't know. We'll start with this. So I think I'm just gonna follow the same pattern of what we did here, and do, like, carousel expanded background. I don't know. Let's see what we can get done with this. So you know, one thing we could do is we could, you know, we don't have to reallocate these lambdas every time. We could save them on the carousel state. That might save us like a little bit of GC, but it's probably not a big deal because we're not recomposing this every animation frame or anything like that. So what do we want to do? So for this, let's start off just writing the alpha, right? So let's say the alpha is not going to depend on the index fraction at all, and basically as it expands, we'll, you know, like the expanded state will be 100%. And that's, so alpha and expanded are basically the same. We go back to the animation here. Yeah. So one thing is like this like expansion, it has quite a bit of like springiness to it. And so I might want to utilize that. Which, you know, actually makes me think that maybe the transition definition API is what we want, but I'll have to think about it a little bit more. So we won't be playing with the shape at all. Or the clip. But we will be playing with the translation Y, probably what we want. And we'll add some springiness later, but let's just kind of deal with this right now. So here what we can do is we can go, let's see. I'm just gonna pick a number out of thin air, but so we're gonna go from -400 to 0, and we're gonna use the expanded fraction for it. So what we then want to do is we want to kind of position the image appropriately. So I'm gonna want something kind of like this. And I'm gonna align it on the bottom center as well. And it might be kind of interesting because we'll have like we're doing some similar thing for the actual card, so we might be able to like reuse some logic there. But not sure. So for our get Y, we're just gonna turn 0 here. It's gonna stay still. We're using the translation for it. and our center will be here. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Zolix. So this is gonna, each image is gonna be aligned in the bottom center by default, and the posters are gonna animate up, but the center we want the center to be a little bit different here. So we can kind of think of it as like the selected index could be 0, and then each center from that, you know, maybe we'll just do like 75% of the spacing or something. So let's see, the selected index, which is this. Val selected index equals state selected index. And then what do we want here? So this image's index, the distance away from selected index is going to indicate its center. All right. So val distance from center. So let's say count from center is going to be, well, no, dist is fine. So that's going to be the index minus the selected index. And so if selected index is 1 and index is 0, then we want the distance to be to the left, which sounds right. -1, yeah. Okay, so then so that's the number of like images from the center, items from the center that this is. And so we can take that, and then let's just let's multiply it by like 0.75 or something, and then that'll be our result. So we can simplify a lot of this, yeah. Okay. So that's neat. We'll do that. And then, so the last thing that we're going to do is if you look over in the mock-up here, the center image, or like the selected image, it has like a different z index. Well, let's just do that later. Let's just see if we've got this kind of working here. So let's go ahead and play it. run it. All right, let's go to the middle one, and then we hit by ticket. Okay, so all right, so one thing, it's translating the wrong way, I think. Yeah. So actually, I think what I want is something like this. And it looks like the index was wrong, but I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? Okay, so I didn't multiply by the spacing. So here, here, I need to do 0.75 of the spacing. Yeah, that's what I want. So let's try that again. Okay, so that like kind of works. You know, not bad, but you know, at least in the right direction. So we'll have to mess with like the z-index of some stuff in here, but it's at least, you know, it's kind of putting the posters in there. And then, you know, from this, what we can do is we can pass the the expanded float. We can pass that through to the movie poster, and then it can start to animate some of its stuff as well. So I mean, I think that's pretty cool. You know, we're definitely getting there, one 2-hour stream at a time, but happy with the progress. Speaking of which, we're at about 2 hours 45 minutes now, so I think I'm gonna call it a day, and we'll pick this work back up. Well, let's see. So my next stream will be Wednesday, and I'm going to be working on the compiler stuff. So we'll work on that. So definitely tune in if you're interested in seeing that. But I think the next time we'll work on this app will be Sunday. So thanks everyone for coming by, and hope it was useful to you, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Cheers.